What is going on, guys? Money Webby here, back again, week 15 with my favorite NFL DFS picks of the week. If you guys at every position I'm extremely high on, I think they got some great matchups and just going to return a ton of value for you. So before we get going, be sure to spam up that like button. Let's try to get over 150 likes in this video. It'd be great if we can hit that, so thank you so much. And if you happen to be new here to the channel, hit that subscribe button to get some more DFS advice and just research information from yours truly. I do NBA DFS picks every single day for the slates and all that good stuff. So let's just get into the quarterback. First up, I'm loving some KIRK Cousins here in this week. Even though he's been absolutely dreadful the last 2 weeks, this is a great matchup for him to just have like a get-right kind of game where he just kind of figures things out in the offensive end and kind of puts some thoughts to rest on why he's been playing so bad recently. So this Dolphins defense, it's a good matchup on paper first off because they don't have a good pass rush. That's kind of the main thing that's really been hindering this Vikings offense, I think, is that their offensive line is not very good, especially in pass protection for KIRK Cousins. So with the limited pass rush coming at him, he'll have more time to find guys like THIELEN, Diggs in the outside and all that good stuff. And the Dolphins have allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. So their defense is definitely on the downturn. I think KIRK Cousins can get it going against this defense this week. Have a better, much better kind of DraftKings output. I mean, he's had some big games. Like he had that 30 against Green Bay, 24 against New Orleans, even probably more in the beginning of the year where he had the 37 and 35. So the upside has been there. It's just that the floor hasn't been too great. But this seems like one of those matchups where they just have to win and the offense has to get going. We saw Tom Brady slice and dice this Miami defense last week. So I think KIRK Cousins can do it. So that's my first pick if you want to pay up there. For my second guy, like I mentioned, Tom Brady coming off a really strong outing against Miami. Threw for 358 yards. 3 touchdowns, good for 29 DraftKings points. Normally around this time of the year is when the offense starts clicking for the Patriots and then they started getting in that playoff form. So going against the Steelers team, which he has a ton of success against, it seems like every time they play the Steelers, Tom Brady's at the top of their game, probably because how their defensive scheme works out. They play a zone defense, and Tom Brady is very good against zone defenses, especially against this Steelers zone defense that hasn't been too good. They really struggled against tight ends and slot wide receivers, which is exactly what the Patriots really drive their success on when Julian Edelman and Gronk are getting some easy routes and just easy openings in the defense, and they can really just click on offense like they did last week against Miami. So I think Tom Brady's going to have another huge game, over 300 yards. I think he'll be able to get 3 touchdowns, maybe even 4 again in this matchup. And this is the highest over-under on the slate between the Patriots and Steelers. 54 points is implied. Only like a point spread of like 2 points in favor of the Patriots as well. So it should be pretty close. Both these teams are playing for a lot. The Patriots are fighting for that bye, and the Steelers are still fighting for their playoff lives. So 5,900, extremely good value. So that's my second guy. I think that's my favorite quarterback on the slate. So I'd honestly prefer going Tom Brady over KIRK Cousins, but since I recommend a few guys, I wanted to have a guy that's a little bit higher in the price that I like. But for my final guy, Nick Mullens here, is just way too cheap here at 4,800. The Seahawks are allowing the third most drafting points to quarterbacks. And Nick Mullens, he's coming off a really solid outing against the Seattle defense, and this was in Seattle. He got 414 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a comeback and a come from behind effort. I think that will be the case here again this week. I don't see San Fran really stopping Seattle's offense too much, so I think they'll be coming from behind. A lot of passing attempts. He had 48 in that game against Seattle. And also Matt Breida, he might be back this week, but if he isn't back, then that will probably be even more passing for Nick Mullens. And George Kittle has looked extremely good recently. I think Dante Pettis is a solid little wide receiver on the outside. Goodwin, we know he can play. Jeff Wilson has shown some ability out of the backfield, and if they do get Breida back, that'll be just another offensive piece for Mullens. So I think he can give us a really good amount of value. I mean, at his price like a 4,800, for him to get like a really good 5 times value number, he would just need 24 DraftKings points, which he was able to do in that first matchup. And in comparison, if you pay up all the way up for Big Ben, who's 6,600, I believe, for him to return 5 times value, that'd be 33 DraftKings points. So it's just an easier task for Mullens to give us good value, and also it allows us to pay up at other positions. So Nick Mullens at 4,800 if you want to save some money. I think that's a really good play at quarterback. And now for running back, I'm going to be paying down a little bit at running back as well. Joe Mixon here at 6,100. Just way too good of a matchup. The Raiders are allowing the second most rushing yards to running backs this year. Joe Mixon has looked extremely good over the last 3 weeks. He's averaging like almost probably a little bit more than 5 yards a carry recently, getting a little bit more involved in the receiving game as well with 5 catches and 5 catches and 7 catches, 2 out of the last 3 games. And then just the Raiders defense can't stop anyone. So I think Joe Mixon will be able to rack up over 100 total yards. I think he'll be able to find the end zone in this game. And he got 31 touches last week against the Chargers, just because like their offense is so depleted without Andy Dalton, without AJ Green. Joe Mixon is pretty much that workhorse in this offense now. He's been getting the majority of the snaps. Gio Bernard kind of has been phased out. So I think he honestly could get 25 to 30 touches again here in this game. And a price tag at 6,100, that's an elite number at that cheap of a price tag. So a really good matchup, a really good opportunity number for Joe Mixon I think will be coming his way. So that's a really smart, and I think a really way too good of a play there at 6,100. I would imagine it'd be pretty chalky just because his price tag is so good. But for my second guy, Chris Carson here with 5,600, with the news with Rashard Penny, the backup running back that was kind of fighting for some work. He'll be out for this game, so that means Chris Carson can get back to his ways of a lot of carries. Like in the beginning of the year when Penny wasn't really a factor, Carson was getting like 30, he got 32 carries in one game, 19, 25. So he'll have that kind of added upside, I think, in his carry and his workload. So I think he can get closer to what he did last game against Minnesota, where he got 22 carries, put up 15 DraftKings points, and didn't even get a catch. So win this game against San Fran, matchup that he really exploited last time with 16 touches, good for 108 yards. If you had a few more touches on his plate, I think he can get around like 25 touches and get over 100 yards and find the end zone at 5,600 here. So really good value. I think he'll be able to get around 20 DraftKings points in this game. So that's my second guy, Mixon and Carson, a really cheap duo that both have really good upside. For my final guy, Jaylen Samuels. He just had an elite kind of opportunity the last game. He had 18 touches, good for 16 DraftKings points, and he wasn't even that effective rushing the ball, but he was really effective in the screen game and stuff like that against the Raiders. So not a great matchup for Samuels running the ball, definitely. But at 5,200, a guy I think that can easily get around 5 to 7 catches again here against this Patriots team. Obviously, there's the concern that James Conner might play in this game, but based on everything I'm hearing, it looks like he's going to be out. Typically, when the Steelers list someone as questionable and they don't practice on Wednesday and Thursday, typically they're out. And also, he was very limited in the practice on Friday, so I would imagine they would hold him out, and it'll be the Jaylen Samuels kind of show here again. He had 80% of the snaps last week, which is one of the highest numbers out of any running back on the slate last week. So, I mean, the Steelers kind of treat their number one running back as a workhorse. I think he can get a good amount of catches here. Again, the Patriots are allowing the 6th most receptions to running backs. And Samuels is a very solid wide receiver or receiving running back. He played like wide receiver, tight end, and running back in college, so he definitely has good hands and good ability of running routes and kind of understand the defense from a receiver perspective. So 5,200 receiving running back here. He also has the ability to find the end zone. I mean, it's going to be a really high-scoring game, I think, here. So Samuels, with just how much he's going to be on the field and just his opportunity, he could definitely sneak in for a touchdown as well. So that's my final running back. So you got Samuels, Chris Carson, and Joe Mixon. All those guys seem underpriced for me and extremely good values, which allows us to pay up at wide receiver and tight end a little bit. So for my first wide receiver, I'm liking Adam Thielen here this week. He's been very quiet the last 2 games, but a squeaky wheel sometimes always gets fed. Or not sometimes, always. A squeaky wheel normally gets fed in the NFL. I mean, we saw Keenan Allen earlier this year, like, kind of chirp about how he wasn't getting enough targets in the last few weeks. After that, he was just going off. And then Adam Thielen, towards the end of that Seattle game, he had like a 20-yard catch, and he was like, should have been all day. He was like pissed that he didn't get enough targets and stuff like that. So I think this week he'll be vying for a lot of targets and receptions. I think he definitely has the upside against this Miami secondary. They're not great, and they definitely are beatable from the slot wide receiver side of things. Julian Edelman went 9 for 86 and a touchdown against them last week, and we also saw Gronk over the middle get a good amount of work against this Miami defense. So I think Adam Thielen has the capability of having that huge upside that he's shown this year. Like, I think he can honestly have one of these Green Bay type of lines, 8 for 125 and a touchdown. He has that kind of upside in this matchup. and he's just due for a big game. So 8,600. I like Adam Thielen there as my first wide receiver. To pair him up with another top dog, I think Juju Smith-Schuster will be the guy that is given the easier coverage. I'm not sure how the Patriots are going to approach this. I mean, you got Antonio Brown and Juju has been the more productive guy over the last few weeks. So, but over like the Patriots kind of games against the Steelers, normally they kind of hone in on Antonio Brown. I would imagine they would do that again and have like Stephon Gilmore on Antonio Brown, meaning that Juju will have the much easier matchup on the other side of things. So I'm gonna bank on that here again this week. I'm gonna think that Juju will have the better matchup and will be able to go off. I mean, the last time they played, Patriots won, and Juju was the one that had that success. So there's no reason for the Patriots really to change things up. Juju went 6 for 114 in that game, and Antonio Brown only went 2 for 24. So I think Juju has that kind of big upside again here. He's had, 8 catches, all over 100 yards in those last 3 out of 4 games. Huge upside. And like I said, a really high-scoring game. So I think Juju will be the benefactor of this matchup and game flow. So that's my second wide receiver. A really elite duo there with Juju and Thielen. Both those guys could go over 20 to 25 DraftKings points. And for my third wide receiver, another pricey guy, so it's probably tough to pair all 3 of these guys up. But I think Julian Edelman could be a nice pivot if you don't want to go with Juju or if you don't want to go with Adam Thielen. A really good matchup going against the Steelers, the team that he has really beat up on the last 3 games. He has 8 catches, 9 catches, and 11 catches in the last 3 games against the Steelers defense. And like I mentioned, the Steelers zone defense just really struggles against guys over the middle. We saw Keenan Allen just roast this defense. Based on their defensive alignment, they had like linebackers covering Keenan Allen for the majority of the time. And when he was in the slot, I mean, he had 14 catches for 148 yards and a touchdown. I mean, they don't really have the personnel to even limit a guy like Julian Edelman. I mean, they could try to switch things up a little bit, but I think that would just lead to Gronk going off, and then they'll probably switch things up. They cover Gronk, and then Edelman will go off. So they really don't have an answer for either of these guys. So I think both of them are going to eat. I think Edelman could have a nice game like he had last week, have 8 or 9 catches, go over 80 yards, and possibly find the end zone. So that's my third wide receiver. And for my fourth guy, another slot wide receiver. That seems to be the theme of this video, but all these guys just have the best matchups to mean the best value. So 4,400, Randall Cobb. He's had a very quiet year, but he's been dealing with injuries the majority of the year, and seemed to be finally healthy. He got a full practice in on Thursday, and he was removed from the injury report on Friday. So a healthy Randall Cobb. We saw week 1 when he was healthy. He went 9 for 142 and a touchdown against his defense. Good for 32 DraftKings points. So the thing with the Bears defense, definitely an elite defense, but the one kind of way I think you can beat them is through over the middle throws, to the tight ends and to the slot wide receivers. So Randall Cobb, with him being healthy, and also the Bears just lost their starting slot cornerback in Bryce Callahan, so that kind of makes them a little bit more prone to the slot wide receivers. So I think Randall Cobb could honestly get 7 catches in this game, and I mean, they have a really good pass rush with Khalil Mack, obviously, and the Packers' offensive line has been kind of beaten up and struggling with pass protection, so that means some quicker kind of throws to Randall Cobb could be in order here in this game. And also Green Bay could be working from behind and have to pass a little bit more. Also, the Bears' run defense is extremely good. So I just feel like it's a Randall Cobb kind of week. And at 4,400, it's definitely a price that's worth taking the risk for with this kind of upside in this matchup. So that's my final wide receiver. So you got Randall Cobb, Julian Edelman, Adam Thielen, and Juju Smith-Schuster. A nice little band of slot wide receivers there. And for my first tight end, like I mentioned, Rob Gronkowski, obviously, and also Eric Ebron here. His opportunity has been up a ton without Jack Doyle the last few weeks. He had 8 targets, 16 and 7 in this game against Miami. Good for 16, 16, and 21. He's one of the safest bets for a touchdown week in, week out. And going against Dallas, they have really good cornerback play. T.Y. Hilton is questionable for this game. He didn't practice at all this week. So Eric Ebron, he'll probably be the go-to guy, honestly, with if Hilton does play, he honestly could have a good week, but it's a tough matchup if he matches up against a guy like Byron Jones, who's been one of the best cornerbacks in the whole entire NFL this year. So Ebron has the best matchup. Opportunities up a lot against this Cowboys defense. And I think he can honestly go for 8 catches, good for 80 yards and a score again. So 5,900. Definitely worth the price. And then Gronk, like I mentioned, another guy that destroys the Steelers, destroys zone defense. He's had some humongous games against this defense. So 5,800. He looked really good against Miami, 8 for 107 and a touchdown. A similar kind of defense that struggles against over-the-middle stuff. So 5,800, another really good play. Obviously, EBRON and Gronk are obvious plays, but I think this week in particular, they can really get it done. And for my final guy, Cameron Brate here, at 4,000. I mean, his volume hasn't been great, but he's still the go-to guy in the red zone for Jameis Winston. He scored 3 touchdowns in the last 3 weeks with Jameis. And also, this defense against Baltimore, the best way to attack them is with the tight ends probably, because they have really good coverage on wide receivers. And Cameron Brate was even coming out and saying that he likes the matchup, and his chemistry with Winston is off the charts, something like that. He's pretty much saying he's going to go off, I think. So at 4,000, I like him a lot against Baltimore. So that's my final tight end. Pretty self-explanatory. EBRON, Gronk, and Cameron Brate are the guys I'm looking at. A little chalky there, but I feel like those guys are way too good not to mention. And for my first defense, the Jaguars going against Josh Johnson in this weird offense that the Redskins got running out. It's like a Madden like Ultimate Team starter kit almost. It's like a starter pack where you got Josh Johnson, you got Vernon Davis, and a bunch of these other weird players. So this Redskins offense, I don't see them having much success against the Jaguars defense. They have been looking a little bit better recently. 17 DraftKings points against the Colts, 9 against the Steelers. They struggled a little bit against Tennessee somehow. Not really sure why they couldn't stop Derrick Henry, but I think they'll be able to stop this Redskins offense pretty easily. So at 3,400, I think they're worth the price. And then we got the Ravens here against Tampa Bay. I think Winston can force a ball or two, throw a few picks, and also could get sacked. So at 3,000, like the Ravens there. For my final defense, I think the Bears could honestly get some sacks and stuff like that. Maybe force Rodgers to force a ball. Maybe strip Aaron Jones, who's had some troubles with ball control over time. So and the first week, they got 14 DraftKings points. Even though Rodgers was able to move the ball really well in the second half, they still got 4 sacks and a pick, and also forced a fumble. So they're really, pretty much every single week, they've been like good, no matter the matchup. I mean, they made the Rams offense look terrible. So if they could do that to the Rams offense, I think they definitely could limit a guy like Aaron Rodgers in this Packers offense, which hasn't been great, honestly, this year. So at 2,900, underpriced for an elite defense. So those are the 3 defenses. You got the Jaguars, Ravens, and Bears. There's not many many defenses that I like that are cheaper. Maybe the Redskins defense against the Jaguars if you want to save a little bit of money. That's pretty much it, though. Maybe the Lions against the Bills. But for most part, I'm trying to pay up at defense for those 3 kind of ones I mentioned. But that is it for the plays. I hope you enjoyed it. A few guys at every position and stuff like that are really good matchups. So if you did, drop a like in the video. Like I said, over 100 likes would be great. Thank you for that. Or I said 150. It was over one of those would be fantastic. Subscribe if you haven't already to continue to get these videos the remainder of the season. I do NBA DraftKings picks as well, like I mentioned before. And you can comment any questions you might have down below the video. I'll try to answer those to the best of my ability. So good luck this week in Week 15. Hope you take home some money and win your fantasy season-long matchups if you're still in that as well. But good luck. We'll see you back here again next time.